Yeah, I've been a teacher. I've taught quite a lot. Obviously, it's quite a sort of extreme, dark, satirical look at education. It's not completely naturalistic. It's one angle at education and comprehensive schools. There's a lot of, very well-functioning, non-dysfunctional kids and teachers in schools, but we were looking at one particular angle at where there's dysfunctional kids, dysfunctional teachers, teachers not being supported, kids not being supported, and a sort of dark, satirical, blackly comic look at that. So it was kind of teaching my experience of education and also working with young people. And then I read this story where a teacher who worked diligently in a school for 20 years, one day lost it with a kid quite seriously, had no previous experience of violence. So it was looking at where that kind of breakdown comes from, and that kind of anger, And
so that was the light bulb moment?
Well, yeah, it'd been sort of swelling around in my head, and that was a kind of, clarifying point, I think. Yeah, and that inspired me to write it. But it's also a wider study of just anger, is anger functional, is it, or is it always destructive? Looking at that human condition, really. Yeah.
It's also a bit of a relationship film.
Yeah. Well, with the coming of age kind of story of the young. Yeah.
Absolutely.
What I thought, because what I don't like about horror films is, or what I was trying to poke fun at is when you just get young kids. It's very pertinent that the kids had just turned 16 in my film, and it was kind of a Hanukkah funny games kind of moment, I think, because I don't like it when you just get young bodies slashed, and it's kind of, I know that's a genre, but I wanted to give them real lives, sort of naturalistic, detailed, complex characters that you cared about, so that when really bad things happened to them, you were much more involved.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, because I've been an actress, that's what interests me,
Well, it's the realism as well. I mean, have they all acted before, or was there any non-actors?
No. Oh, so Robert Hands is a very experienced, a brilliant actor. The teacher. Donia Gavansky, the mother, Mia's mother, was amazing and experienced. All the others.
So basically, the kids.
Graduates or just kids that I found on. Yeah, but they were brilliant.
Yeah,
and I think anyone can act if they have the keys and the tools into it. It's just about being truthful and responding in the moment, being in the moment. I kept telling them not to act and just to respond truthfully to what's happening around them. And they love it. When they get it, they're like, oh, this is great, I love this.
Because it's so emotionally driven.
Yeah.
It's driven by emotion.
Yeah.
Did they have to stick to a strict script? That was a mouthful. Or was there some ad-lib going on as well?
There were scenes when it was just improvisation, like the scene with hands slapping at sunset. I just wanted to get that energy of those boys being, because they were playing the real ages that they are, so they're 17, 18.
So you wanted to capture the naturalistic nature and the energy
playing,
and everything. Yeah.
That was all improvised and, sort of worked with me as improvisation at the time. And then others were very scripted. Yeah, so it was a little bit of both.
I've already described it as the most intelligent horror film I've seen in years.
Thank you.
That's based not just on the concept, but the literary content of the film, with all the references to Lord of the Flies and all the rest of it. Are these all books that is this all literature that you'd read prior, or did you read it during the process of writing the script?
No, so like my saving, like my lifeline when I was in school, because I didn't have a great time at school, was books, and I read a lot. And then I went from a comprehensive school and I did a degree in literature at Oxford, which was full of people from public schools, so I had a chip on my shoulder about it. But those books, a lot of those, I mean, there are many more books that mean a lot to me, but those books, The Wide Sargasso Sea means a huge amount to me, Jane Eyre, Lord of the Flies.
That's the one for me.
Yeah.
Because that meant so much to me when I was growing up. That was something I read and reread and reread, to the point where one of my friends' mum used to call me Lord of the Flies because I always had it in my pocket when I ran around the house. So you used to teach. What would you consider the right age to read it?
Lord of the Flies? Yeah. Well, the boys in the book are, 10, 11, something like that. So I think they could read it.
I was thinking 10.
Yeah, I reckon. I
mean, I'm going to break the rules and give it to him when he's 9.
Yeah, well, kids are different, I mean, my son, who's kind of a sensitive, thinker, he has problems at school because, all the boys play football, they all kind of, really they're macho and they don't talk much. He wants to talk. I mean, we have talks about, simulation theory, universe simulation theory, and he loves Interstellar, he loves sci-fi, he's 10. And, you know, books help give him that key into understanding what's happening around him. You know, that you don't have to be a certain way, you can be who you are, and books help you with that. Films too, you know, good films do that as well. They help you make sense of the world around you and realise you're not alone. You know, that's the great thing about literature and filmmaking, makes you realise you're not alone.
Yeah, Lucian, my son, he's like that. He's a thinker. He's more into the arts. That's my influence. But he still watches things like Pacific Rim, and he likes his sci-fi, horror, and certain degrees of horror. Nothing like what you've made. So I'm going to move on to that now, because while I've covered the intelligent, the literature-driven aspects of the film, the actual horror itself is really intense, because effectively that is the lesson. Yeah. You know, that all happens during the lesson. Yeah. Well, that was the challenge we had, because I don't know, my producer said, he talks a lot. He talks a hell of a lot. Are the audience going to manage this? Because you are kind of trapped in the lesson with the kids. You know, you can't escape. And it's a very uncompromising film. But what we did try and do was create these real people, detailed people, the kids, so that you were there with them and you cared about them, you cared what happened to them. But in another way, because it's uncompromising, he can be so, because he's suddenly in his element, because he's got this chance to say everything he's ever wanted to say, and he's got a captive audience. You have got that chance to explore all those ideas that he's in free flow about in real detail. So I wanted to take that chance and be uncompromising in that way, and you know, and hope the audience would enjoy it. So was any of that improvised, or did
no? That was all scripted.
But has he got a theatre background as well?
He has, yeah. And because, you know, I used to work, I've worked with Robert actually, and I just think he's an incredible actor. We had so much unspoken understanding when we got onto set about how to work and how to find the truth. So it was a very kind of mutual process of finding where he should be in each piece. It's a mammoth task for me. He had all these like massive monologues, and we had to make them real to him, every single one, so there was a dynamic to every single one that was different, you know. And that journey he goes on, that's something because we had such little time, because we made this film for 28 grand.
So how long did it actually take to shoot?
We had 18 days to shoot, and 1 day off, I think, and 15, 16 hour days. Sorry, cast and crew. Just had no money. So we would get on set and we would just work it straight away. What's he thinking here? And there were quite a few takes, and sometimes I said that I'm not quite believing that. What are you thinking here? Because it's all about thought, every thought you have when you're... And,
the whole film is about that.
Yeah.
It's about thought, and it's a film made to make the audience think. You know, you can't... It's a love or hate it film.
I think so. I think it is.
And you won't walk away from the film not taking something away with you. Not having learned some kind of lesson. Good. Even if they didn't get the whole lesson, they could take something away. So, have you got anything already in the pipeline for the next project?
I've got two. I've got a sort of European sensibility kind of ghost story with a kind of, because I've been massively inspired by Guillermo del Toro, and it's got a sort of social commentary, political backdrop to the ghost story, about evangelical Christianity going on as well as the ghost story. And then I've also got a dysfunctional family road trip movie, which isn't like Little Miss Sunshine, even though it might sound like that. It's much more, again, European. It's about a marriage with two cultures in it, and how that works, and how the kids deal with it, and financial strife. And
well, I'm sure they'll both be intense. Thank you, Ruth.
Oh, thank you.